And it's time now for Talk of the Bay, K-Squid's local public affairs program that comes to you each weekday afternoon at 5. I'm your host, Rachel Ann Goodman. It's my pleasure to be here behind the microphone. Today we are talking with Anthony Cardinale. He is a representative with the Teamsters union. They've been on strike through all this terrible weather, walking the picket line in search of better conditions and wages. And right in our own community, we have a Cal State Monterey Bay, and that is CSUMB. It's been impacted, and Anthony joins us, hopefully. Hey, Anthony. Welcome to the show. It's great to have you, and thanks for being on Talk of the Bay.
Hi there. Yeah, thanks for having me on. I really appreciate it.
You are out there in the weather. It's quite horrible weather. Tell us about where you've been and why you're striking.
Well, me and the other Unit 6 members, the other members of Teamsters 2010 down there at CSUMB have been out in front of the Otter Student Union, walking back and forth with our picket signs, handing out flyers. And we've just been hoping to raise awareness about what the CSU has been doing.
And what have they been doing or not doing?
Well, they've been stalling talks, stalling the negotiations. What we're trying to do is to get them to come back to the table and just talk about the raises that they had promised that we had negotiated into our last contract that they've been refusing to meet about.
Well, it goes without saying sometimes, but it's worth saying anyway, that it's expensive to live around here. So I imagine keeping up, at least with inflation, is a good idea. Tell me about some of the workers that are on strike this week. What do they do and what services they provide the university?
Well, the Teamsters represent the skilled trades division at the facilities department, and I'm a painter here at CSUMB. We have electricians, plumbers, maintenance mechanics, which are like handyman generalists who address many of the issues on campus. We have project supervisors who oversee and direct the contractors that come onto campus. We have locksmiths. We have, they're called BSCs. They're HVAC technicians and specialists. Really, all of the repairs that happen in-house and even some of the repairs that are overseen are done by Unit 6 and the Teamsters on campus.
And if I'm not mistaken, I have seen the campus, and a lot of the housing there was taken from the old Fort Ord and is still in disrepair. So I imagine it's quite in need of lots of help from people like you who paint and fix locks and other kinds of things. It's not a new campus all the way through, is it?
No, that's right. And many of the systems that we have there are antiquated and require specialist knowledge. We have long-term employees. One of the most important parts about sort of keeping up with inflation and making sure that wages are current to the market is it's so important for state employees to not leave, to not pursue better opportunities, which there are an increasing number, because these, as you say, these old Army buildings, these antiquated systems, they need ongoing repairs done by people who've been doing the repairs. The majority of the people that work in my department have been there for more than 10 years. And some of them go back to the founding of the university some 26 years ago. And it's important that we retain this workforce. It's important that we retain the people that know how to work on these buildings, because it's not always the case when we bring contractors in from the outside that they have the specialized knowledge to do this work.
It used to be that working in the public sector, you traded job security, and good benefits for pay, that you were willing to take, slightly lower wages than you could get in the private sector because you were getting better benefits or what have you. Is that no longer a good bargain anymore?
That's often the case with public sector workers. The Teamsters represent a lot of skilled trades members who come from strong union backgrounds, who come from environments that have pensions. And when they do work for the state, they receive prevailing wage, which is far outmatches what we receive as state workers. And so we want to attract those people to go back to like the antiquated systems and stuff and why we want long-term employees. Attracting people that came in from the Navy who had worked on boilers, who had worked on some of these systems was really important. And so what it gets a little it's unfortunate because trying to retain people who come from strong backgrounds, who have the opportunities to go and work places with pensions, the job security really ends up being the driving factor. And in recent years, during COVID, they did layoffs, and some of the job security really got shaken up. And so, like you say, the traditional reasons that people go into public sector work, some of those things have been threatened by the contracts in recent years. And we're hoping to push back on that a little bit and keep these public sector jobs attractive and keep people in them.
Indeed. Well, I don't know if you want to bring in AI, but certainly the Teamsters are doing jobs so far that, self-driving trucks can't do, or locksmiths. You can't have a robot locksmith yet. These are jobs that are probably more secure in some ways than the white-collar jobs that are going to go away soon. So it's
Right.
ironic in a way because the people studying there at Cal State Monterey Bay are studying for mostly white collar jobs, I would assume, or academic jobs. And you guys are the ones keeping the actual physical campus running. Without you, it sounds like it literally will fall apart.
We are trying to stay ahead of the necessary repairs. The CSU in general has a problem with deferring maintenance, with underfunding the departments that do repairs. And the Teamsters have done their best to encourage them to hire enough people to maintain these properties. You know, the students, there aren't very many paths that lead to our department. Obviously, like electrical engineers may become electricians. A lot of the HVAC work requires programming. And so we may get a few CSU graduates that come into the department, but by and large, yeah, these repairs are being made by people who are coming from trade backgrounds, and they're trying to maintain these environments that are, like you say, falling apart. And students are living in these environments, they're learning in these environments. The CSU employs a lot of people, they're working in these environments. And I know that I do, and I know that many of the people that I work with would take a lot of pride in being able to cultivate a positive environment that the students can be in. I paint the buildings and I paint the dorms, and I know what it's like to live a place that looks a little crummy. And I can only imagine what it's like to go to a school that's dilapidated. By staying on top of these things and by putting our best foot forward as the facilities department, we can make it so that these students can be proud of the place that they go to school. They can be proud of the place that they live while they go to school. But we can't do that without people, and we can't do that without funding.
Right. And so tell me a little bit about your union. The Teamsters, have a long history. This specific strike is only against CSUs around the state, but there are a lot of them. How many people are out of a job right now on strike across the state of California?
The Teamsters represent 1,100 skilled trades workers at the CSU, and right now across the system, the majority of us are out. It's a 4-day strike. It's some of the worst weather that we've had in a little while. There are floods across the state. There are ongoing problems that aren't being addressed because so many people are out on strike right now.
You would think that they would want to talk to you because damage can be done if there's flooding and other immediate needs that you, as workers, cannot, because you're on strike, help them with. So, in a way, maybe you're in a good bargaining position. Any word yet from the people who you would be negotiating with at the Cal State level?
I haven't heard anything. Obviously, we check in as often as possible. It would be nice to not have to go out into the rain again. So we're really hoping to hear back. But one of the challenges that we face in negotiating with the CSU is, our bargaining team goes to the table able to make decisions. Our bargaining team goes to the table. We have half of the bargaining team are skilled trades members, and half of the bargaining team work for the Teamsters directly. And they go to the bargaining table able to talk, able to make a deal. But the CSU, to a degree, struggles to do that because of their larger bureaucracy. And so even if the CSU wants to come back to the table, they struggle to sometimes make that decision. And I think that they will take note. We're getting a lot of support from local politicians. We're getting a lot of support from the Teamsters International. And I think that there are a lot of eyes on this. But the CSU rarely poises itself to come in, make a decision, and kind of stop the bleeding, as it were. And so we're waiting to hear from them, but we've been waiting to hear from them since we made our counteroffer back in October. And they've been hesitant to, for whatever reason, they don't want to come back to the table and talk to us.
I'm speaking with Anthony Cardinale. He is with the Teamsters Union, currently out on strike across the state of California, striking against the CSUs, the Cal State University system. And I think there's, 16 Cal State universities across California. I'm sorry if I have that number
23.
Right. 23, thank you. Sorry.
That's right.
Of course. And of course, millions of students across the state go to these universities. It's a great bargain in a lot of ways. Many people transfer from there, but also many people just take the 4 years at these Cal States. We have one in our listening area, Cal State Monterey Bay, that's relatively new. I think you said 23 years they've been a college, taking over the former Fort Ord site. And as we were talking about earlier, there's a lot of disrepair when you take on an old military base that is deferred maintenance that the Teamsters that work there would be doing. Now, you've been out on strike for 3 days, is that correct?
That's right. We started our strike on Tuesday.
And you said the conditions are really bad. It's been one of the colder seasons. It snowed in some parts of the listening area. So I'm wondering, how are you physically holding up?
I've seen guys show up with new jackets and gloves. It's been surprisingly cold. It's been wet and windy. It's been difficult, and we're just doing our best. It's hard to hand out flyers when it's driving rain, and I've hidden behind my picket sign more than once, walking around and just trying to keep the rain off my face. It's been difficult, but that goes both ways. The driving rain is going to be a pretty convincing situation to bring the CSU back to the table with all of the damage that's been done and usually happens. There are leaks, there are other maintenance issues that happen when the rain gets particularly bad. And so we're out there having a tough time, but we know that we're not the only ones. And on the one hand, it can be really tricky, but I'm glad that at least that part of the sacrifice is for the greater good, as it were.
Yeah, there has to be an end point that you're aiming at. And how long do you expect to be out on the picket line?
It's a 4-day strike, Tomorrow is going to be our last day on strike. I'm hoping that this is going to be the last strike action of this particular negotiation, but we're prepared to, do what's needed. There hasn't been another strike vote, but if this goes on for months and months, then we could go back on strike again for the same issue.
So this is like a shot across the bow saying we can do this and we did do this, and we will do it again if we don't come to some agreement. Is that kind of the tactic you're taking as a union?
Yeah, I mean, they walked away first, right? They're withholding their labor by not negotiating. They made an offer, we made a counter offer, and they refused to continue the process. I mean, that's them withholding their labor. So we want them to know that we're prepared to withhold our labor as well. And we've gone on strike before. We went on strike in order to negotiate last time. One of the sticking points is the raises that they promised that they were going to give us, and those were the result of strike actions and compromise. And now they don't want to go back on the compromise, but they want to go back on the raises. And so they've shown us that strikes are how we have to talk to them sometimes. It's unfortunate, but the members are motivated. They know that it's the right thing, and they know that the CSU has the money. So if it's what we have to do, then it's what we have to do.
Right. So let's get down to brass tacks and just talk about a typical Teamster employee who is hoping for a raise. What level raise? What are people making in average yearly, and what kind of boost are they hoping for?
I'm not quite sure what people are making on average yearly. I am a lead painter. I believe I make $75,000 a year, and I was hoping for a 4% increase, which was supposed to bring us up to what inflation was 3 years ago. And I think that since then, inflation has gone up by about 8%. So I'll be trailing behind a little bit, but hopefully when the new contract gets negotiated again, we're going to be able to take that into account.
Now, do the Teamsters ever take a position on overall economic issues in the nation, or did they pretty much stick to, their union and what they want specifically? Because, these broader changes can affect people on a big way in your union. So I'm wondering, are there things you're tracking outside of the state that could impact the working conditions, or even more importantly, the wages of people in your union?
Well, as a union steward, I mostly communicate with the union about the issues within the CSU. I did help briefly as a representative and go around to some of the other CSUs. The focus, as far as I know, is on local issues, but local issues being statewide, right? So we're talking about the state budget issues. We're talking about the relationship with the governor and the governor's relationship with the CSU, which is a big relationship. It's the largest university system, I think, in the world. And their relationship with the state, with such a big state, it ends up being a lot. And so the Teamsters coordinate with different local representatives. They work with, I think, state representatives on the federal level as well. But most of what I hear about are the statewide issues and trying to negotiate and trying to support even the CSU. We sent people to Sacramento in order to encourage the state, the assembly, to give the CSU money, knowing that the CSU's funding is so important to the members. It's so important to how the members get their raises and how the members get more workers to work with them. And so most of what I know about is the statewide stuff, and that's most of what I see.
And which representatives locally have come out to support you in this strike?
I know that the lieutenant governor came to San Francisco, and that there were some other representatives that ended up in San Francisco. Just locally at CSUMB, Anna Velasquez, the mayor of Soledad, came out and marched with us and did a quick picket with us. And I believe they worked directly with State Senator Caballero and signaled their support, which was great. That's what I've seen personally.
Right. It makes a difference. I was also wondering if you are getting support from the students. Often they're unaware of the people in the background keeping their university running in a physical way.
Oh, it's been wonderful. I mean, the students see us out there. We've had multiple students join us on the picket line. We were invited, another union student and I were invited to go to a class and talk to them about the strike. They're learning about the First Amendment, and we were able to go in there and explain to them what we were doing. Their professor told them, encouraged them to join us on the picket line. We've had quite a bit of student support, more student support than I would have expected, and a lot of the other people on the picket line are really buoyed by it. You know, they see that the students care about what we're doing, and the students show interest, and they take flyers and they ask questions, and that I think has really been a wonderful connection that's being made between the workers who, again, like you say, are often behind the scenes and keep things going, who are able to explain themselves and explain the situation they're in and get such positive feedback from the students that are there. Again, even though it's raining like crazy, and students are stopping in the rain to talk to people and find out why they're picketing because they're so involved in their community.
That's really wonderful to hear. You know, we end up sometimes in our lives being bifurcated or, divided by our class standing or what job we have or are going to have. But a lot of the people who are going to Cal State Monterey Bay are first-gen students to go to college in the first place. And so, they're hoping to be upwardly mobile, but also they all understand the value of hard labor and hopefully understand the value of organized labor, which is something I don't think they teach enough in either high school or college. We are watching a kind of resurgence of the labor movement. In fact, we saw labor coming out in support of the people in Minneapolis, the solidarity across lines here, given that we're under sort of a siege mentality in our democracy. The labor unions seem to be playing a leading role in reminding us that this is one of our rights. Like you said, it's our First Amendment right to assemble, to express ourselves, and quite often those rights are challenged these days. So is there anything in the last 5 minutes you want to say about that particular, the landscape of labor in general? You're part of the Teamsters, a giant union. The labor number of people in unions has gone down and down since Reagan, but it seems like it's ticking up again. Is that your experience?
My experience has been that in the last 5 years, certainly since COVID, I mean, there was a big resurgence in support for labor. We work on a college campus, and so we work alongside faculty. The California Faculty Association, CFA, has been extremely supportive. CSUAU, it's the California State Employees Union, has been really supportive. We've seen students come out because their professors are telling them what's going on. And that's labor solidarity. I think that students are more likely to support labor because not only do they have professors that are telling them, hey, this is how this works, this is how collective bargaining works, but they're able to see the effects of that as people stand up for themselves, as people, when we go on strike and they ask questions about it, I really do think that they see the microcosm that is labor's relationship with the employer and their relationship with their government. The connections are there. I do think that the students see that.
That's right. I really do. It's a good teachable moment, as they say in the academic settings.
Right.
Well, I want to thank you so much for making yourself available. I'm sure you're wanting to get into a hot shower after being out on the picket line all day in the freezing cold. So I'm going to let you go do that. But thank you for keeping us informed about your strike. The Teamsters are on strike against the Cal State universities across California this week. And keep us posted about how you do.
Absolutely. And thank you so much for having me on. And we are on strike tomorrow at CSUMB. And anyone is welcome to come out and march with us. The weather should be nicer, and we just appreciate your support.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Anthony.
All right. Have a nice day.
You too. It was Anthony Cardinale of the Teamsters Union on strike against the CSUs, and that was from CSUMB in our listening area.